Chapter 12. There was a terrible commotion near my father's chambers. Men shouted, servants dashed in and out of the room, and knights streamed down the hall in panicked lines, as my mother's calm, painted face looked blankly on. No one bowed to me or even seemed to see me at all. I pushed my way inside. The fireplace blazed, and in contrast to the dark corridors, the whole room seemed ignited in its blinding yellow light. I saw my father lying gray-faced on his royal bed, its 4 giant posters wrought from gnarled ancient trees. Antony, his favorite manservant, was on his knees. He was praying. I rushed to my father's bedside. "What's wrong, Antony?" Then I saw the bandages soaked in blood and a black trail of it on the floor. Saccavero, the ancient court doctor, pulled back the coverlet to place a new dressing on my father's stomach. My father's eyelids fluttered but didn't open. He moaned, a hollow aching sound. "What's wrong with him?" I took up his limp hand and squeezed it. Father, can you hear me?" He didn't answer, and the doctor grimly went about his work. Saccavero was battle-seasoned, a man who'd pulled arrows from soldiers' eye sockets and axes from their skulls. He could stitch any slash and mend any wound. I grabbed his arm. "Tell me you can heal him," I said. Saccavero turned to me, his shirt front dark with gore, his expression distraught. "I have never seen a wound like this," he said. "What do you mean? Have you forgotten your skills?" "Princess, this is not a sword scrape. His room is supposed to be guarded. Where were the men stationed outside his door?" I felt a hand on my shoulder and looked up to see Otto, his face stricken. "He was not in his room, Princess," he said. "Where was he? Was he in conference with his knights? Was he preparing for battle?" Otto shook his head. "The king was alone, Princess. I cannot understand it. But he went to the dungeon unaccompanied. He was—" Otto could hardly bear to say it. "Attacked upon his return." My legs gave out, and I sank down onto the bed. "Oh, Father, what were you thinking?" Because I knew exactly what he had done. Though he had refused to release Raphael, he had gone to visit him. He descended into the dank hell to make sure that the traitorous beast, as he would have called Raphael, was still alive and that he was not being tortured further by Gaddis or his henchmen. His mercy was repaid in blood. This was all my fault, too. First my mother and now my father. I pressed my palm against his forehead. It was damp and as cold as stone. "Father," I whispered, "I'm so sorry. Father, I'm here." His skin was ashen and his breathing shallow. The new bandage covering his wound was already turning dark and wet. "You have to save him," I begged the old doctor. "I have applied a balm of egg whites and rose water to the wound," Saccavero said, "and spider webs to stop the bleeding, which is obviously not working." "We have given him henbane as well, Princess," he said. "Does it stop the bleeding?" I asked. My hope was small and desperate. "Does it close a hole in a man's stomach?" The doctor looked away from me then. "It eases pain," he said quietly. He paused and then added, "It calms the dying." The dying? Surely he was wrong. My father was a warrior. "But I've seen you wrest a wounded soldier away from the grip of death himself." "I am sorry, Princess. This is beyond my powers." "Please," I said. "You must keep trying." But Saccavero only stood where he was, grave and still, as I lay my head on my father's strong barrel chest and felt his shallow rise and fall. "You're going to be fine," I whispered. "Don't listen to Saccavero. I will take care of you." My father took in a ragged, harrowing breath. "Sophia," he whispered, "my sweet songbird." I sat up, clutching at his shirt. "I'm here, Father. Everything is all right. You just need to rest," I garbled helplessly. His lips widened, a smile or a grimace of pain, I couldn't tell. "I'm sorry, my daughter," he said. "Sorry for what?" I asked. I was crying now, and my tears fell onto my hands, his chest. "I'm afraid that I am about to cause you strife. Father, please." "You can't die. I forbid it. A crown is heavier than it looks. I only wanted to protect you, my child, and now who will?" He struggled to open his eyes. Is Otto here? I can't see. I'm here, Your Highness, his knight said. I'm not ready to depart this life, my father gasped. Who will protect my Sophia? In a choked voice, I told him that I loved him. I told him not to worry, that he would heal in no time. He squeezed my hand. Perhaps I will see your mother, he said, a ghost of a smile flitting across his lips. His breath was coming quicker now. You can't leave, father, I begged. I need you. The kingdom needs you. I'll tell her how lovely you are, he whispered. How kind and good you've grown to be. How much... I heard the shuddering of his heart as I pressed my face against his chest. Its beat was fast, faint. With my whole soul I wished for it to surge on, keeping him alive, keeping him with me. But a few moments later it stopped altogether. I sat up, sobbing, and pounded my fists on his chest. He didn't move. He was gone. My father, the great warrior king, was dead. I no longer had a mother or a father, and it was all my doing. For a moment grief blinded me. The world went utterly dark, and everything around me was a swirling storm of sadness and horror. Then I felt hands lifting me from the bed, pulling me up, standing. I opened my eyes and saw every man in the room sink to his knees. What are you doing? I asked, bewildered. Your Highness, spoke Otto, his head bowed low. The king is dead. Long live the queen. Then he looked up and his fierce kind eyes met mine. You, he whispered.